Good evening, how are we all this evening? Bit warm again. And apologies, I didn't get changed into a fancy top because I'm going to be doing stamping and inking, so I thought, you know what, a white top probably isn't the best. I pushed my luck on Thursday at the telly wearing a white top, so I'm avoiding it. So I'll stick with pink. So, good evening, Carol. Good evening, Linda. And Jackie. Fan of Jackie. Right. Hello, Jackie. So, this evening we are going to be playing with, working with traditional wood-mounted rubber stamps. So, on the All Things Crafted with Stamps Away, I have put some of the ones that we've only got one set of. So if you want to jump on there and have a look. The two main sets I'm going to be playing with are the sort of florally ones, which I've got a few more of, but we're not talking massive numbers. From Blackpool, and how is Blackpool today? My old retriever Leave, I used to love the beach at Blackpool. So yeah, we've got quite a few different ones on there, but some of them I say we've only got ones or twos of, like these beautiful. Now on the pictures, I appreciate you can't see the size of them, but these are all sizable stamps, so check those out. Somebody has said they're interested in the plains ones, but as of yet I haven't heard back from them, so if I don't hear back from them, they'll be up for grabs again. We've got these beautiful Mandela ones. They are, I mean, that's massive. And the price on there includes postage. So I'm going to flick to overhead camera. Ignore the gubbins going on. This is one of the sets we're going to be playing with. And I can't actually, bear with me a moment while I look up and say how much I was going to do this for. Let me swap out of that. Bear with me. Where? Right, so bear with me. This set, I think. Bear with me. Oh no, I've not put this set on yet. Right. So this set, which is, I haven't even counted them. 2, 4, 6, 7 small. Well, they're not small. I mean, I've not got the smallest hands. Floral ones. This is £12 this set. So, and they're proper nice rubber, so we're going to be playing with those. I have, evening Sue, I only have, magic number, 4 sets of those. So if you're interested in those, they're the florals, throw them in there. The other set, now I do have a few more of these. I have 6 of this set. Okay, and this is £10. We've got this beautiful border one. We've got this one, which I'm going to be playing with a lot. It's sort of like 2 panels, and then this is a sort of a smaller, more detailed version of that panel, so they work really nicely together. Okay, so they're on there. If you're interested, let me know. I've added the Ujima Flips embossing powders to the website as well, so that you can order those, the ones that I had on the telly on Thursday. Right, so let's start playing with some traditional wood-mounted stamps. Okay, so these are the ones we're going to be playing with. So we've got that from one set, that from the other set. So obviously the disadvantage with wood-mounted is that you can't see where you're stamping. They do have a picture on the back that lines up, but if you're used to clear, it's not as quite as easy, but there is lots of things you can do, and they all have a cushion on them, so they are nice and easy to use. And if you're doing journaling and stuff like that, you can't actually beat wood-mounted stamps. So let's have a little play. Got a bit of black card here, and I'm going to be using this embossing powder a lot. This is the Royal Satin Gold. It doesn't look gold in there. Right, let's just get some stamping going. So I'm inking this up with a pigment ink. I know it's blue. Okay. And I'm just gonna press down. Now, because this is wood mounted, and then I'm gonna come in You've got that cushion in there. Obviously you can remove them from the block if you want, you know, and then they just become, but look at that. You can't beat the impression of a wood mounted one. And they're rubber, grey or red rubber. I say we don't have many of them. Only I would pick up a piece of paper with creases in to put my embossing powder back in. Right, so let's just heat set this, hang on. I've been handling the card quite a lot. There was a discussion on the telly last week about heating from above, heating from below. I am going to heat from above because it's easier for me to see while I'm trying to make sure I'm under the camera. And also on a fine line piece of art like this, it's not going to make that much difference. Okay, so look at that. Lovely gold. I mean, just against the black there is just fabulous. You know, I'm tempted to leave that one just like that. In fact, I am. So I'm going to just stamp up another one. Yes, you may, Carol. The small florals, yeah. I'll go through the messages at the end and sort out. Yeah, they are lovely, and we'll have a play with them in a minute. But I just adore this. I mean, for ATCs and things like that. Oh, Alta Tea Box Workshop. I think I have one place left on it, so okay. So just go in this one because I want to do something with this. I'm actually going to do that again as well. Another piece of black. I thought I had a piece of black. Okay. The reason I'm going to do that again is the way I have chosen which of the stamps to demo. Some of them, because they've been stored in a box for a while, a couple of them, the foam backing had been compressed. I don't know if you can see, but along that side there, the foam is slightly more compressed than that side there. So this has become my one, and so what I have to remember to do is just put it down on that side and then rock it into place. But all the others have been checked, but that's why I've got this one. I didn't squash the foam on purpose so that I could have one. That would be wrong. It's only because they've been stored for some time like that. We also found some blocks without stamps. I never did find the stamps, so I don't know where the stamps have gone. Right, that's perfect. Okay. So, just going to heat set these. We're going to have a little play with some colour. I love this embossing powder because in the jar it looks so boring. It looks like brick dust. But it is the most beautiful, like, antique gold you can get. It's not a harsh metallic. It's just, when you look at what it starts like, it does look like rust. Okay. So I'm going to leave one of these just black and gold because isn't it beautiful? And this one I'm going to take some of those flowers out of it. So, scissors. So you're staying as you are. You're going to get chopped up. Right. I'm going to do a little bit of watercolouring. Treat myself to a little travel palette-y thing. So just spritz it with some water to get it going. So, I really like this red. Now I know I'm watercolouring onto black, so that's going to give it quite a different, or a rich look. But the nice thing, because I've heat embossed this, can you see that where I'm going over the lines, it is literally just flowing off. So you really don't have to be the most accurate painter for this. So just add in a bit of red to there. Okay. And it makes painting so easy. And I know we've gone on to black there, but if you go on with a thick enough, you know, a nice well-loaded amount of watercolour, don't go too wishy-washy, you will get an intensity to it, but it just gives it a real richness. I'm now going to do the same with just a couple of the leaves. Because the red is so strong in this just little watercolour set, and this is just a little sort of travel one, has a little water brush, that water brush sits in the side. I think that's enough for that. I'm going to just quickly cut these out. Maybe find some smaller scissors, but no, maybe not. And you've got that barrier from the embossing to hold this in place. So even the cutting out is nice and easy, even when you're using ginormous scissors. These are what I affectionately call my monster scissors. Now I've got a little bit there that is sort of behind that petal. And because in reality the two petals wouldn't be joined, I can cut between them and get that little, what we used to call in decoupage terms, a landlocked part out. Okay, so just adding that, so quickly cutting these. So I'm going to decoupage these on top. I just love the richness you get from, obviously gold on black always looks amazing, but adding a little bit of colour. By the way, don't cut it out while it's still wet because the watercolour will lift off onto your fingers. Just a word of warning there. Okay. So I am going to add a little bit of red back there because I have, there it is, on my finger. No, yours on the fingers. So you can add them onto the top and they just start to pop. And I would do the same with the little leaves as well. Or if you want to, you could paint the leaves on the background one. But what if you want to give this a very different look? You know, you want the colours, I mean the colours are getting quite intense anyway, because I'm making the paint quite strong. I'm not going wishy-washy, but that's really pretty. But you could also bear with me. If you paint white quite wishy-washy in the background, so quite wishy-washy, it will flow off the gold. So you can just, I'm avoiding the flowers even though I have got those to lay over the top. So you give it like this chalky look. So not as thick with the pigment as I did on the main flowers. So you're just adding almost like a sort of a skimmed milk rather than a full fat milk. If you feel that it's gone too white, you can just water it down. Okay, but you see how that's making things look very different. And then give that a dry. I'm not going to do it with a heat gun obviously because I've just used embossing powder. And then you can come over with your colours and it will give your colours a very different look. I'm going to do yellow this time. Ooh, that's flowed into there. Actually no, I'll do blue. No, I'm going to do yellow now. So it will make the colours pop a little bit more because you've given them a white base, but you've still got that strength of the black. And then I would still layer those on the top. I am going to tone that down a little bit. Why do I tidy up beforehand and then put away the things? So I would carry on. I do want a blue actually. I think the yellow's a bit, let's get a bit of blue. That's nicer. I think the yellow was a bit too close to the gold, but it has given that a nice sort of turquoisey look. So just, again, allow the embossing to put your lines back in. It's like easy painting. But having that white underneath just gives it a really, and by dabbing, I'm taking off any colour that's resting on my embossing. So, nice and simple. I will glue that onto there later, possibly cut out those as well. Okay, while we've got this stamp, let's do something a bit different. Oh, I knew what I meant to bring up. Meant to bring up some baking parchment. I'll have to use something different. Right, bear with me a minute. I've just got to plug my iron in. Yes, you heard me correctly. I am using an iron. Ta-da! Iron. Right. Let's make a space because that'll get hot. I have got my iron on low, which I had to remember to do because I melted something earlier. I'm going to come in with the same stamp. You don't have to ink it up, but I am going to ink it up with a nice metallic. Okay. And then I am going to cut from this piece of velvet a piece about the size of my stamp. I'm going to go into that corner and cut a piece about the size of my stamp. Okay. Now this has got something on the back. I don't know what this fabric is on the back, but all I know is it melted to the bottom of my iron earlier, which is why we use our craft iron for things like this and not our real iron. I mean, it is a real iron, but it's not one I use on Paul's shirts, like I iron his shirts. Right, I am wetting the velvet, bringing my stamp, and I'm laying it velvety side down. Now, say this, whatever's on the back of this likes to melt, so I'm going to use a piece of paper between the two so that there's a bit of, I should have brought up baking parchment. Right, I'm going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One, and then I'm just moving it around because this is a big stamp. But I'm lifting it and moving it and applying a decent amount of pressure to it. Okay. And what you get is this beautiful impression into your velvet. Here's one I did without the ink. Can you see? It actually does like an emboss into it. I'm going to do another bit. I'm going to wipe off the ink as well, because I think actually sometimes the ink distracts from what you're doing. So I'm going to do one more and I'm going to make it a little bit drier. This still going to dampen it, but I think I made that a bit too wet because that's never going to dry before the end of the evening, because I love this effect. Been desperate to try this for ages, and I thought, oh, tonight's the, so I'm just dampening it this time. I probably saturated a bit too much. Okay. And I'm going to press firmly down. I didn't count to 10 in each area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. because you're working on a wood mounted one, you can just be a little bit more robust with it. So press down quite firmly. You're kind of wanting to almost mould this round. Can you see, if I go to that camera, can you see that has embossed into there? And you've got a fabulous textured piece of velvet. I just think on book covers and stuff like that, it'll be really fabulous. Right, I'm going to unplug my iron, because that's the iron done with for now. Oh, there we go. And I'm going to put it on the floor behind me, facing away so I don't walk into it. Right, so I think we're finished playing with that one for now. I love that stamp though. Let's have a little play with this beautiful bordery one here. So let's start with a bit of book page, and there it is. I think this is nice and bold, this will show up. I mean, just look at the detail in this. I just think for journals, it's just exquisite. And I have done a little sort of watercolory thing here. So I was swishy swashed with some blue and green, and then I used a piece of card and sort of dabbed it like that to push the blue and green into each other. I mean, just look how beautiful that is. Now this is the bit that scares people with wood mounted, is trying to line up for things like that. But just go for it. If you mess it up, there's always a way to, but nobody would notice. Do you know what I mean? You can continue it, but if you could just add a little bit in the middle there, and that will join it together. But isn't that a beautiful, but I mean, it's quite a big, so the chances of you having to want to do that anyway is unlikely. Just going to do a second generation in the background to give that sort of misty feel. And again, it distracts if you've done your join. So it's such a beautiful one. But I wanted to show you something else that you can do. Yeah, it's just such a simple way of doing it. Yeah, just blue and green, and then it gives you, as you say, that nice, what's the saying in the Fens, 3/4 sky. Every photograph is 3/4 sky. So I want my coated cardstock now. So if you think that was fen-like, I'm going to just cut this down so that... Okay. So, this is petroleum jelly. Vaseline by any other name, except I've bought Asdazone. So, get some on your sponge. Now, this has got some colour on it as well, so if I'm going to stamp it on a piece of scrap paper first to make sure that if there is any colour, it's going to come off on the scrap paper. So there's just a faint bit of colour there. Stamp a couple of times. Got a good way of reactivating your ink pad, really. Your, ink on your stamp. Give it a little squirt. Because I do want this to be clean. I probably should have done this technique first, but here's a first, watching me clean a stamp. See, I do it. Velvet stamping is lovely. So I wish I had my old purple velvet knickerbockers I had when I was a kid, because they would have been lovely. So going back, as I've cleaned my stamp, I'm now reapplying my Vaseline. Okay, and I'm going to stamp this towards the bottom. Now when you're stamping with Vaseline, it is very slippy and you're working on a coated cardstock. So try not to slip. Don't know if you can see, but there is some Vaseline. And it's probably best, might be better on the second generation, especially if you've overloaded it. Because I was too busy talking, I didn't sort of pay attention. Because normally I say, you know, just put a very thin amount on. So actually the second generation is probably going to be better. So let's cut those in half. So once you've applied your Vaseline, you're going to pick some colours of Distress ink. I'm going to go with sort of greens and a clean sponge. I do tend to do that with my sponge as well, so I don't accidentally pick up the one that's got Vaseline on it, because that, you know, obviously you're going to smear. So can you see that? It will start to act as a resist, and you get this lovely sort of misty morning feel. It's very, very subtle. I always find coming in with a second colour with your Distress ink just makes things pop a little bit more. So you see how you're getting that nice sort of misty feel. Let's do the one that's got more Vaseline on. Trouble is, if there's too much Vaseline, what happens is when you do this, it smears, and can you see it's given us a much sort of hazier look, which might be what you want, but it can just sort of smear away any detail, whereas here you can see we've got the detail. And then what I would do is take my stamp, give it a little, because obviously it's got Vaseline on it, give it a little wipe and dry. I'm not drying it on my leg. And then going in with a VersaFine Clair, and I'm going to overstamp, and I'm hoping that I've moved down the page a little bit, so we're getting that little, again, a sort of a misty, foggy sense of dimension. And then just to give it one last layer, let's go with our VersaFine. And we're going to come even lower down to give us a foreground. And then we've got a sense of direction, dimension with our layers. Okay, so that's Vaseline stamping. Okay. Let's start to play with this guy. I just want a piece of card. Where's my book? And let's get some masking tape. Masking tape, where are you? There you are. Okay, so I'm just going to grid this up. And we're going to go to town on this. I'm not going to grid it up in the normal way, I don't think. I think we're going to go like this. Yeah, let's sort of offset. And then round the edge, sorry, let me move that up, so that we're going to have a white border. I will never remember what order I've put this masking tape down in when I come to undo it. Okay. Right, let's get some colour. And I haven't changed my sponge because I'm going to go, I'm wanting a bit of a background here. I'm not so concerned about what colour it is. I just want some colour. And I'm going to go quite generous with it. I really don't want any sort of white, so that when I peel the masking tape off, it will be nice and intense. Okay. So I'm just getting some colour. Also, it doesn't overly matter what the colour is because you'll see why in a minute. Because I'm going to come in with some embossing powder. Working on a book with embossing powder probably isn't the most sensible thing, but why not? Okay. So this is a clear pearly one. Okay. Let's just get that heat set. And distress ink will hold it if you load up enough distress ink, because it has a wetting agent in. It has the glycerin in it. This is why we wanted a colour behind, because we're using like a pearly embossing powder. Right. So let's get these going. Pop the lid on that one. Okay, and I want that one and then that one. So it'll start to go quite quickly. Okay. So just getting it melted. Now again, if I'd have done this from behind, you wouldn't see as many pits in it as I've got here. But as we're going to be doing multiple layers, I really want the top to be warm. So we're going to come in with the next pearly one. Now, I've got a fan on here and it's cooling everything down, including me, which is the important thing. So I'm not going to be afraid to try and find my embossing ink, which might be somewhere else. It is somewhere else. Why is it not in there? Right, I'm going to need an ink because it's not going to stick. So, doesn't matter. Let's mix some ink in. Okay, and I'm going to come in with this one now. So if I was working and I hadn't got the fan on, I could have just warmed my embossing powder and it would have been warm enough so it would have grabbed the next layer of embossing powder. Because I've got the fan on and I don't want to be panicking and things like that, so I've just used another layer of ink. Now if you use clear ink, obviously you wouldn't see it, but actually I think it's going to be quite nice having a colour in here as well. There's nothing wrong with it, just going to have a slightly different. And this is the Lilac Pearl. So actually with the blue ink behind, it's giving sort of a depth to that. Okay, so just get that going. am concerned that the masking tape might stick a little bit because I'm heating it, but we will find out. Right. I mean, you can just see the sort of the colours. Let's come in with a little bit of this coppery one. So yeah, it's so cool now. But what I can do is sort of, I can have a little bit more control. You didn't see that. Just tried to put that on as the lid. Gives me a little bit of control, so I can just put the embossing powder where I want it. So I've got sort of panels. I mean, that is just so delightful. I think I called it Copper Magic. So this has got a mica as well as a glitter in it. Okay. I haven't forgotten that we're going to be using stamps, don't worry. Okay. So just making sure that I'm melting that all in. I do think I want one more layer of colour in here. So I'm going to warm it and see if I can get some on. Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. So this is that gold we used earlier. Now also don't worry that it looks like I'm wasting a lot of this embossing powder onto this masking tape, because if I'm careful when I'm peeling off, I'll have some bits that I can use. Yeah, that's given me a nice bit of contrast there. So just make sure that you're melting it all beautifully. Okay. Right. Let's start to play with these. So we've got that fabulous embossing going on there. Let's prepare some stamps. So I'm going to use these from the small floral set. I am going to ink it up. Right, so I think you're going to fit in there nicely. So I'm only going to concentrate on this panel. The advantage to doing multiple colours on your embossing is it makes it easier to see when it's moving, because you've got different colours there. Can you see? I'm going to turn the fan off for a minute, so I'll probably cook. Can you see that that's moving around? Then I'm going to take my stamp and I'm just going to press in. The temptation to press down firmly is quite great, but if you press down too firmly, you're pressing into a liquid. Right, oh no, it's not worked. Oh no, what a disaster. Doesn't matter. Let's warm it again. That's what I love about Ultra Thick. Now obviously I have got an ink there. Now if you don't want that sort of inky vision to be there, grab one of your embossing powders and sprinkle a bit on top to get rid of it. Okay. Remelt that. See, and it will just hide that ink that we've got going on there. Take your stamp, press it in. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there you go. You've got your flower in there. I actually took it out a little bit too soon, so I can actually peel that off. If you take it off too soon, that's still liquid, but I kind of like the effect of that. So let's do this little, I think that's going to fit in those quite nicely. What do I want to do? Oh, I haven't decided. I'll do this one. Put the lid on that for a minute. I'm going to put the fan back on before I cook, sorry. So I'm going to concentrate on this panel up here. So keep heating it till you see it moving around. So there it is, moving around, and then press your stamp in. Because everything's warm, it can sometimes take longer to, you can't leave it in too long, but you can take it out too soon. Yeah. And then I want to do this one. I'm going to do that. No, actually, I think that's too... I might do it diagonally. I like that little dinky one. Concentrate your heat in this area here so you're not accidentally melting the bit you've just done. Hold it. Don't be tempted to lift it too soon because you end up pulling. That's a really nice one. So just want to do something else in here. Might use this one. I think this will look really cool. So ink it up again. And we're just going to concentrate on this panel down here. So keep watching till you start to see it move. And then down you go with it. Multitask. So watch for it to move. Press that in. Don't do that. That's really cool. That's nice. Look at the depth you've got there. So we've just got this little bit down here. What one haven't I used? I'll have to use another little bit of this one. There's not as much embossing powder on here, to be fair. Okay. And then just... The temptation to say A, to press too hard, and 2, to pull it away is very great. Right. Can anybody remember what order I put these down in? No, that one. So I would save that masking tape because it's now like a really posh washi tape. Where your embossing powder is thick, just go slowly because you don't want to actually crack your embossing powder. Just go slowly. So those edge bits haven't got as much powder on as these ones. Right. Okay, it's looking nice, but it's these cross ones that start to get. Just ease it up. See, so you've got that lovely sticky tape with embossing powder on. Okay, that was that one of the first I put down? Can't remember. No. Okay, it was the cross ones. See, I'm rubbish at remembering what panels I did. But you can see, just having those crisp edges. Okay, so this is the last one. See, I love that little panel down there. As we ease up, go slowly because it's quite thick here. And now you can see why I say it didn't matter what colour I did in the background, because I knew I was going to be layering all these different colours over it. And you've got these fabulous panels. And that just as a card is really interesting. But I think that is probably my favourite. I really love the detail in that and the colours and the way the stamp's pressed in. So that's triple embossing with all the different, and yes, obviously you can do triple embossing using the same colour embossing powder all the way through, but I just think there is something really, really lovely about having different colours to it, and it just adds so much more depth. And although the copper, you know, we put the gold over the top, but you've got that sparkle coming through, and then the pink in the background, it's just delicious. It is just such a lovely, lovely technique. Right, what else did I've got so much mess around me. What else did I want to show you? Let's have a little look. I've got a book page there. What was book page for? Oh yeah, I was going to use that. Right. So, I'm going to go back to this stamp because I really, really like this. Right, so back to our homemade rice papery stuff. Okay, I've still got some scraps left over. So I'm going to stamp onto that. Which looks lovely. I'm going to come in with my gold embossing powder, she says, when she remembers where there it is. Okay. Going to heat that. And because it's the gold, it kind of disappears a little bit. And by the way, because we've stained this with coffee, lovely smell as you heat and emboss that. So it's kind of disappeared a little bit, but you can see it on that side. So you could use that side, but I kind of like, there's my watercolours again. I was just going to add like a hint of yellow ochre behind, or red. Might use the red again. So I'm going to work on the back. Let me put some white behind that. So I'm just going to add, come on, a hint of colour. In loads came out then. Behind. If you've got black embossing powder, this would look really fabulous, but you see how it's kind of giving it a very almost sort of stained glassy look to it. The trick is to not go too heavy with the colour, she says. That's better. See, it just looks really, really delicate. I know, totally not like me. A little bit of green. Just on those leaves. Actually, that's probably a more sensible way of doing it. Just add in a hint of colour. I want a bit of red on that other flower. And then we're going to go with some like a blue, just as a little wash in the background. That was a much more sensible way of doing it, so I'm not getting too much colour. Who knew? It's only taken me 20 years to learn that. So there we go. Just add in a little bit. And I kind of like this side as well. And that's what's nice about working on like vellums and things like that. The only thing to remember with this is we did make this with PVA, so it will be a little bit sticky, so don't leave it to dry on that side. But I just think that's really pretty, and I think it would look nice maybe on brown or black might set it up. Black sets it off really nicely. You could overlay it on the one with the gold underneath just to give it an extra pop. You could stamp your, I mean, what that book page. I just think that gives it a really nice, or ideally, hang on, this is just try to see if this will work. Bear with me. With some light behind it, like a Lumiere. That looks really pretty as well. Obviously not as bright on the light on the phone. So that's using your homemade rice paper. I just think that's really pretty. Obviously your book pages and things like that, you can do all sorts of things with them. Just stamping on them, adding a bit of colour to them, embossing on top of them. There's just so much you can do with a wood-mounted stamp. Obviously, all the things you do with a clear stamp, you can do with wood-mounted, but there's just something like nice and robust about them as well. And they're just beautiful designs. I mean, that is just such a lovely, lovely. And if you look, it's actually divided up into sort of 2 panels, so it does lend itself to. Let's quickly do this. I'm going to do it with this sort of idea. Let's just, so I'm going to stamp it on book page. Doesn't show up as much. I'm going to take that panel. Could add a bit of watercolour, but you could take that panel and then lay it over. Actually, this might work better. And where's my, that's the one I want. Let's go with a bolder colour. So that's better. I love that sort of tappy tap noise. It's a happy sound. Okay. And then let your ink dry before you do this. But because you've got that natural panel there, I mean, this would be really cool stamped on acetate. Oh, I've got some on the floor. On the floor. Probably not the best place for acetate. You can put a little coloured panel in there. And in fact, to make that pop even more, let's put some gold on it, because I think the gold against the green will be really nice. There we go. And all the techniques we've done with stamps and things before, you can apply to these. So just get that going. Come here. Very, if your embossing's misbehaving, you have to tell it. I thought Marvin was there. I think he's gone downstairs. Don't know why misbehaving made me think there. And then I would cut that out, because when it's floating around like this in the middle of a whole sheet of pink, it looks wrong. It looks like the green is an afterthought. Whereas if we cut out the pink, because sometimes we go, oh no, that's not right, but we're looking at it, same as when you're choosing mats and layer. If you're looking at 2 whole pieces of paper, it's not a true representation of what it's actually going to look like. So always take away the excess, if that makes sense, because by taking away the excess pink, we're actually going to help the green stand up and connect. It's not looking like we've just plonked a bit of green down in the middle of a bit of pink. It's a conscious decision. And then what you would do to tie that together again further is onto a piece of white, and then either onto a piece of gold or onto a piece of green, and then pink behind that as well. And that will then help. Also, don't pick it up while the ink's still wet. Honestly, that's the way you can make things connect if you think that they don't look like they're connecting. Put a barrier between one of them, take away excess that you don't want, and then it will start to look like it's connected. I will get that matte and layered up. I'll re-stamp that so that it's not got a smudgy fingerprint in it. What am I like? Right, I've just looked at the time, and I think we best nearly call it a night. So flick to there, then to there. Right, so that was again another ramble around the stamps. So check out on if there's any of the stamps there that you fancy. Either drop me a message or seek out the pictures. I will try and get them up on Facebook later on today. It's just been a funny few weeks. We've just been a bit all over the place, but we're getting there. So yeah, so any of the stamps, they are lovely, and you know, they're the sort of thing that you will use time and time again. And also bear in mind, some of them are huge. They really are beautiful big stamps. If you don't want them on the wood, it is easy to remove them. But yeah, you know, don't let that put you off the fact that they're on wood. Wood mounted stamps still are fabulous. Check out the embossing powders as well. We'll probably have a bit more play with embossing powder next week, because I have got some other ones that haven't been seen yet, so I'll get them sorted out and do them in individual colours. And we've got some standard colours like gold and black and stuff like that. But yeah, in the meantime, so one last place on the Alter Tea Box if anybody wants to join us for that workshop. I will get some online workshops up over the next week or so. I'll have a look at dates. I think that's about it, but if not, I will see you same time, same place next Wednesday. In the meantime, be good, be creative, and take care.